Hi, my name's Joanne from Dovestone Coaching, and I'm here today to do a little bit video about a psychology term known as habituation and why it is important when helping you step outside of your comfort zone. So habituation is a decrease in response to a stimulus, a trigger, as something that makes you feel uncomfortable or anxious. And after repeated exposure to this stimulus, you become accustomed to whatever it is that used to make you feel uncomfortable. And it's kind of like becoming used to something. So if you imagine, if you started to work in a workplace where they had a radio on in the background, initially you would notice the songs, you'd notice the adverts. And after a while, after a few days maybe, you'd start to become accustomed to the sound. So you'd be able to put your focus back onto your work without really paying much attention to it. And it's not just kind of listening or sounds, it can be smells. You become accustomed to certain smells, certain tastes, certain feelings. And it's the feelings ones which in anxiety and the things that make us feel uncomfortable are really important. So in habituation, and there's something that is used for phobias called exposure response prevention, and it's about when somebody gradually introduces themselves to the thing that makes them afraid or nervous or anxious, and when they become accustomed to that at a small level, then they start to go to the next level. So for example, if you were afraid of flying, you may start to imagine yourself being on a plane, become accustomed to that feeling. When after repeatedly exposing yourself to that imaging, to that vision, then you might decide to go to an airport and spend time in the airport. When eventually you become habituated to the anxious feeling there, you might take the next step towards getting closer to a plane, booking or ticket or something like that. So habituation helps you almost become used to feeling anxious. And there are some interesting graphs, but as a general rule, your anxiety will go up in a curve. It will peak to when you feel really anxious, and then gradually start to come down again. And some of the things that is important to know when you want to use habituation and push yourself out your comfort zone is that the frequency that you expose yourself to the stimulus is really important. So the more frequently you can expose yourself, the quicker habituation occurs. So for example, if you felt anxious doing public speaking, the more you can do bits of public speaking, the quicker you will become used to that feeling of being anxious. Doesn't always mean that it's going to go away completely, but you get used to the feeling, you become accustomed to it, so you find it easier to focus on what it is you're there to talk about or to do. The other important thing to bear in mind as well is as well as the frequency, the duration. So the longer you expose yourself to the stimulus, the quicker again habituation occurs. So for example, if you were scared of spiders and you exposed yourself to holding a spider, and then you did that for 5 minutes and then didn't do it again for a long time, and then you did it for another 5 minutes. If you can hold that spider for longer and more frequently, you'll become used to holding the spider quicker. The other thing that's important to know is change as well. If the intensity suddenly increases, so for example, if you're in that workplace listening to the music and the music suddenly goes up in volume, you will notice it again. So again, when you start to change, so if you take a small step to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and then suddenly you take the next step, you'll feel the anxiety go up again. But eventually you'll become habituated to that. So it's a really good idea to do what we call a hierarchy of exposure. And I will do another video on this that you'll be able to see how to do a hierarchy. But the hierarchy teaches you to take one step at a time and gradually move towards your end result of whatever it is that makes you feel uncomfortable to help you step out of your comfort zone. And the other really important thing to think about is intensity. If the intensity is really high, so for example, if you were afraid of spiders or mice and you suddenly put yourself into a room full of spiders and mice, the intensity may be so much that you go into a panic mode and you will avoid doing any activity like that in the future. So again, it's really important to take baby steps and gradually move to whatever it is that makes you feel uncomfortable. So that's a little bit on habituation, and you can use that in terms of stepping out of your comfort zone to help you recognize that when you take those little steps outside, you will feel anxious, and it's meant to make you feel anxious. But gradually that anxiety will reduce, and you will get used to that feeling of what, or that activity that's made you feel uncomfortable, and then you can take the next step. And when you've taken a few steps, you will get used to that feeling of exposing yourself to the thing that is unpleasant, the unpleasant feelings, the unpleasant thoughts, and then gradually you'll start to understand that that will get better, and you will start to feel better from that. So that's a little bit about habituation. I will do a video soon on setting a hierarchy to help you step out your comfort zone. So if you want to take the next step then towards feeling less anxious in a situation, then you can do that. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.